Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
There's people that are dying.
Wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
What?
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Hey, hotties. Welcome to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the hottest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they transpired today? I'm your co-host, Sadaf.
And I'm your co-host, Sarah Sahagian. And this week, it's time for another Hot Off the Press. That's when we do a mini-sode that discusses the salacious headlines that are currently obsessing us. Another thing you may not know about me and Sadaf is that we are both avid travelers. And Sadaf, you have a trip report for us from last week. Tell us about New Orleans. So I really want to know, which piece of pop culture most impacted your preconceptions of what it would be like? Was it Girls Trip, Treme, the Destination Wedding episode of Life and Beth? And did Nola live up to your pop cultural expectations of it? Or was it something else entirely?
I love NOLA. Here's the thing. It was not my first time being there, so it was my second time. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went maybe I think 6 years ago, so it's been a while. But when I went, I definitely had quite a few expectations based on TV shows and movies that I've seen. I think I was thinking a fair bit about Treme. I would get excited every time I saw the name anywhere. But this time when I went, I was definitely thinking of Girls Trip because I also went with two of my good friends. Shout out to Megan and Indy. We had such a great time. But yeah, when we went, it was not quite Girls Trip, but it was our own great Girls Trip. It wasn't as horny. There was definitely a level of horniness, though. Certainly. Anyway, we had an incredible time. I've got to say, like, if you haven't been, the food is just, there's really nothing else like it, especially if you're Canadian. We do not get fried chicken like that. Like, it just is not a thing. The food was incredible. The music was amazing. Jazz on every corner at any given time. It's incredible. And the people are so, so kind, which I did not expect. We had one slightly racist encounter. But other than that, I have to say, I've never encountered such incredibly genuine, authentic kindness. It was really, really overwhelming and really, really lovely. And I can't wait to go back. We did about 6 days, which I think is a good amount. If you're going to go, I encourage you to book a trip.
Did you do any haunted tours like in the Haunted Mansion movie, the remake of the Haunted Mansion?
Indeed we did. Indeed we did. Now, if you know me, you know that I'm a big Halloween girl. I love my horror movies. I love scary shit. I love being scared. So yeah, of course. And so we did a voodoo tour actually.
Ooh.
Yeah, because New Orleans evidently is the voodoo capital of the States, of North America, actually, I think is fair to say. So we learned quite a bit about women through history who could have been witches, who could have been some other kind of spirit. And it was led by a high priestess who does magic. This is her whole life. It was incredible. I asked her about the ghost that lives in my kitchen, which I can't remember if I've told you about, Sarah, but
No, I know. I know about the ghost. You should tell the audience. It's a scary ghost.
Long story short, there is something in there. I believe the energy is female. A while back, shortly after I moved into this apartment, there was a screaming noise coming from my stove. It's gonna sound nuts. Yeah. It was one of it, and so I zoned in on it. It was just I'd come back from dinner, so it was late at night. I couldn't figure out where the screaming was coming from. It was horrifying. My windows were closed. There was nobody outside. There was no one in the apartment. I go up to the stove. I realize it's happening around there. It's off. There's no way a stove can manufacture this noise. It starts to sound like it's coming from one particular pan on the stove. So I pick up the pan and the noise immediately stops. But a pan doesn't make that sound, guys. And I realize I sound insane as I say this. It was very real. It scared me for quite some time. And here and there stuff happens in the kitchen. like a spatula will go flying onto the floor, a cabinet door will like shutter or something. And I just kind of write it off that I'm a little nuts or something. But Omar, my dog, since I got him, he has started to like he's picking up on something because he'll just sit and stare at the kitchen and like pivot his body, and sometimes he won't even walk past the kitchen, to the point where I'm like, oh fuck, like there's something here.
I mean, that's terrifying. So what advice did you get?
Okay, so I asked this high priestess because I'm like, this is my chance.
Yeah.
She said this presence sounds completely benevolent. It doesn't sound like they want something from you. It sounds like maybe they just lived there. Maybe they were a part of that place before you got there. Let her lie. You don't need to worry about it. Coexist. And it actually just gave me a bit of peace of mind. I was already doing that, but now I'm like, okay, I don't have to be scared. That's great. That's good.
Being a ghost in Toronto is actually a pretty good deal because you don't have to pay rent. Like, you have a roommate who isn't paying half the rent. So, like, that would be the thing I would resent most. I'd be like, listen, I understand you have an emotional attachment to this place and you're benevolent, but like, come on, man. Like, you're hanging out in my kitchen. You're not giving me any money once a month.
It's 100% true. And also, she doesn't really take up any space. And I feel safer saying this because I'm not actually recording in my apartment right now. I'm at my parents' at the moment. I don't want her to hear me say it.
No. Don't let her hear this. Yeah. Okay. And I'm sorry to the ghost, because next time I come over, I don't want her to have a vendetta against me. Because, like, what if she hears this episode? Like, I don't know. Maybe ghosts can listen to podcasts. I have no idea.
Sarah. What's funny is that I told my mom about it this week, and my mom is now terrified. She's so scared, and she's like, I'm gonna set you up with some equipment, get you an evil eye, all these sorts of things. And I'm like, okay,
that's stuff you need. Like, an evil eye is useful. That comes in handy.
Well, you know what's funny? I got an evil eye tattoo while I was there because I felt like, what better place than in New Orleans to get yourself protected by the spirits? So I'm gonna be just fine. Sarah, have you been to New Orleans before? Have you been to the South?
I haven't. I really want to go. I'm constantly planning trips to New Orleans that I don't take. I mean, that is my hobby. Anytime I have a bad day at work, I go on Expedia and plan a hypothetical vacation.
Same.
But I think we're going to wait until B is a little bit older. She loves spooky stuff, though. Okay. So she might really like all the haunted tours of New Orleans. Like, we did a haunted house the other day. We're recording this on November 1st. So we did the Rec Center haunted house, and we did a million Halloween events. Her favorite movie is The Nightmare Before Christmas. She loved Beetlejuice. I think she's almost ready, but I still think that New Orleans might be like next level spookiness. Like, we might have to wait a couple years.
Yeah, she's just like, she's a mini me, because those were two of my favorite movies as a kid. And I will tell you, there were Jack Skellingtons. B loves Jack Skellington. There were so many of them around.
You gave her your Jack Skellington.
I did?
A Jack Skellington. She sleeps with that Jack Skellington. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I just wanted you to know she sleeps with the Jack Skellington Auntie Sadaf gave her.
That makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. I was obsessed with him when I was a kid. May have had a crush on him when I was a kid. I didn't really understand that.
He's hot. He's sexy. He is a sexy skeleton.
Thank you, Sarah. It's so true. I will say, and I don't know that this is just New Orleans this year, but I feel like everyone really picked up their Halloween deck. Like, there were legitimately scary decorations going on down there in Scarborough, where my parents live, because I'm here for the week. But damn, it's been spooky. I love spooky season.
I went trick-or-treating last night with my daughter in the beach. So our condo did trick-or-treating on the weekend, and then we went out to my parents' place. They live in the east end of Toronto, in this neighborhood that some people call the Beaches, but we had a referendum. It's actually called the Beach.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, the people decided, and normally they go for cute decorations normally. Like, everyone goes all out on this street, but normally kind of cute, spooky stuff, kind of like Casper the Friendly Ghost vibe. But it was terrifying this year. And I'm like, wow, This is a global trend toward just scaring the living daylights out of people. Yeah. I think it's universal.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, there is something going on, but I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Halloween is fun. So would you say that NOLA is the top Halloween destination? Is there another place you've spent Halloween that you think is even more appropriate for this time of year?
Oh my God, that's such a good and fun question. Oh, that's actually, well, I would say Mexico, definitely, because
Yeah.
it's incredible there. Mexico City for Halloween is definitely a wonderful choice. I would actually say those are the two where I've experienced Halloween. I would say that's, oh God, yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah, and by the way, if you don't are not getting a sense of what NOLA is like, it's very much like Las Vegas plus Halloween. Like that is the way to describe
Perfect.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I couldn't live there, but for a weekend or like 5 days, I am very happy, and especially around Halloween because everyone gets into the mood. It's amazing. So please go, and if you go, let us know how it was. We want to hear about your
Mhm.
time there.
Exactly. Well, that was our first trip update that we've ever done this podcast. And every time one of us goes on a trip, we're going to do that because we really do love traveling. And we also love pointing out all of the pop culture moments when we travel.
We also
That's
just want to share a little bit more about ourselves, I guess.
Mhm.
So tell us if you guys are into that. If you're not into that, if you're like, shut up and just talk business, you let us know and we can do that too. We don't have to get more personal, but we like it. That's what we do.
You also gave people great actionable advice from the voodoo priestess.
There
Like
you
if they
go.
have ghosts in their kitchens or, anywhere in their homes, we are helping people. Like
Correct.
it's important to do
Yeah.
that. This is information you need. I live in a new build, so it would be like that Aziz Ansari bit. And I know that talking about Aziz Ansari, it comes with a lot of baggage, but the one bit he talked about, well, like if you live in a new build, what would a modern ghost be like?
Mm.
Right? And that one was quite funny where he's like, he'd just haunt you and be like, "What's your Wi-Fi password?" And I'm like,
I love that.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, that is true. So if I ever
Yeah.
have a ghost, they'll just be like, "I want to watch Disney Plus. I haven't seen Secret Lives of Mormon Wives yet." Like, it'll be that kind of thing.
100%. And by the way, what a segue. We actually want to dig into Disney a little deeper, but why don't we take a quick little break first and then join us? We're going to get into the mouse a little bit. Okay, as promised, we're going to get into Disney a little bit here. This is one of Sarah's biggest obsessions, and I do promise you we're going to do an episode on it at some point. But here's a little bit of a teaser, specifically focusing on Disney's succession plan. Sarah, who is going to be the next CEO? Is this the HBO drama come to life?
It is the G-rated version of Succession.
Of course.
There isn't the same level of swearing or sex, but there's drama. And that's something people don't associate with Disney, but there's no drama like Disney drama. Like these people will surprise you. So basically what we know now is that Disney has a succession plan in place. The plan is to choose a new CEO for 2026. And why this issue of the next Disney CEO is contentious is there is quite the backstory. So I'm going to fill you in case you haven't been following this drama as closely as I have. But this is some of the best corporate gossip out there, guys. So you should be. Bob Iger is the current CEO of Disney. He originally stepped down as Disney CEO in December of 2021. And he handed over the reins to former head of parks, Bob Chapek. Bob didn't like the way his successor was handling the company. So I always think that this is kind of funny because handing it over to head of parks, it's basically Succession. It's basically
100%.
Tom Wamsgam getting to be CEO of Waystar, right? In the finale. It's the same thing. But Disney goes past the finale of Succession and shows you that Bob did not like the way other Bob was handling his business. He felt very territorial. So he has said reportedly that his biggest regret of his career was naming Chapek as his successor. He thinks this was a huge mistake. And Chapek was a parks guy. He didn't know a lot about the media or, how to run a streaming service. To be fair, who does know how to run a streaming service? They're so new. But he didn't know as much about production or any of the other things that Disney has its hands in. He was definitely a parks guy. He had one really disastrous earnings call where Disney revenue was down, but he kept focusing on things like the Oogie Boogie Bash, which is this event they host at Disneyland around Halloween, and you pay extra money to go. And he's like, well, that went really well. I mean, that's not going to save your business, Bob, but if
Yeah.
you are a parks guy, you'll probably be really excited about those numbers.
Yeah.
So basically what happened was Iger was like, put me back in, coach. And so the board asked him to come back. They got rid of Chapek. This is not a terribly sad story for Bob Chapek because they did have to pay him around $25 million to go away.
Whoa.
And if anyone wants to pay me $25 million to quit my job, I love my work, but I'll do it, right?
Yeah.
Like I love working, but I can be bought. So
Oh, absolutely.
it's fine. Like, he's okay. He's probably hanging out on a yacht somewhere, kind of being like, best thing that ever happened to me, getting fired by Disney. People always say that losing your job, like getting downsized, getting laid off, will be the best thing that ever happens to you. And usually that's just something people say because they feel bad for you. This is the one case where this was the best thing that ever happened to Bob Chapek.
Wow.
Really,
What a way
like
to put it.
like $25 million not to work.
Oh my god.
Like, I will pay you
Yeah.
$25 million not to check your work email or go to meetings.
What a dream. What a dream.
Exactly. Just like amazing.
Yeah.
So, Bob Iger, why did he want to come back? The man is in his 70s. And since coming back in this sort of emergency fashion in 2022, because everyone was worried in November of 2022 that somehow, after only less than a year as CEO, Bob Chapek was already showing he was on a path to ruin the mouse's house. Well, Iger's still there. He was supposed to just be there to bridge the gap while they found a successor for, max a couple of years. And now they're going to keep him on until 2026. So this is a man who is 73, who came
Wow.
out of retirement and is going to spend the majority of his 70s as the CEO of Disney, one of the world's largest entertainment companies, at a time that's pretty tricky. So it's like Disney stubbornly thinks that this job is like the presidency, like you can be super old and still do it. American politics joke, because Donald Trump is too old to be running for president.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I know that's a little bit ageist, but there are a lot of other reasons why he shouldn't be president either.
Yes.
Anyway,
yes.
when this comes out, the election will be over. You will know the results. I pray that Kamala wins. If she hasn't, well, I'm sure all of our listeners will also be devastated like me.
Yeah.
So, Sadaf, why do you think Disney is waiting till 2026 to appoint a successor? Why do they keep extending Iger's time as CEO? What is this about?
I don't know, but I love imagining that Bob is sort of wielding the puppet strings from behind,
Mhm.
not unlike the show where
Mhm.
people feel like they're obligated to keep him there, that there really is no better choice, that he really is going to only ever be the one good option. And I feel like, we know that Succession was based on a lot of real life examples, and that's because it really does play out in a lot of similar ways in life. And I have to assume that's part of the thing here. Side note, I find Bob Iger to be quite an attractive man.
He's cute.
He's cute. I know that's not even remotely relevant here, and that's not a reason to keep him there, but I've been wanting to share this information for many years, and Sarah, you're the only one I can share it with, so there you go.
I used to be a fan, but then during the writer's strike, he reportedly said some pretty awful and insensitive things about the writers.
Yeah.
He was not on their side. I mean, one interesting thing about Iger is that he started as a weatherman and then became a corporate guy.
You're kidding.
So people often saw him as more of the creator side, right? Like, he understood and was such a good shepherd of Disney because he got creativity. I mean, not that, weathermen are, yes, I understand their job is to report the weather, but there's some pizzazz if you're
They're
a
not
good
artists.
weatherman.
Is a
right?
weatherman an artist? What is their craft? Meteorology?
Yeah, but I mean, there's some performance there.
You know
There's
what
some
you're saying? You're saying basically that he was one of us normals, and I don't disagree with you, but certainly in all the time that's passed, and a lot has passed, the man is in his 70s, but there's certainly, he's not one of us anymore, right? And I do think the idea of bringing an outsider is really fascinating. Here's my other thought. Disney has had so much going on. There's been quite a bit of merger business, and I'm sure we'll get into it in another episode, but it's a lot of bad drama, and it concerns me for what the future is when it comes to film and television production. And so it all does make me think we do need to bring in somebody from the outside, and potentially, and I'm so sorry to say this, somebody younger who's more who's maybe actually a consumer of all of this content, and can actually steer things back in a better position. But also that things never work out that way, so that's just my fantasy.
Here's my pitch. It is time for Disney to have a female CEO, and specifically a CEO who's a mom. So they've never had a female CEO. And here's why you should have a CEO who's a mom. And this might be naive, I don't have an MBA. I just went to graduate school for gender studies. So
in case
I don't know about business. But I did go to the London School of Economics. So there were people there who were studying business. I just wasn't one of them.
There you
go. And
she's heated.
In my business adjacent education, I mean adjacent because my lecture halls were adjacent to the halls where they studied economics, not because it was close to studying business. Here's what I've learned. I think that people who understand the product are often people who use it. So as a mom who depends on Disney Plus if I need to get things done, who has planned trips to Disney World, I think that I could do, like, if you made me be CEO of Disney, I don't think would fall apart. And so I think that a mom with an MBA who actually had studied business would kill it, right? Like, one of the biggest successes in Disney history was in the 1980s, they decided to get into home video. And the executive who decided to do that, which was a huge boon for them, had kids. And basically he said, I think that parents would benefit from this and would pay tons of money to get these videos so that they can have some peace and quiet while their kids watch Cinderella. And that not only made them a lot of money, but it made rabid fans, like kids who'd watched a movie so many times that they were now demanding to go to Disney World, right? So I think that parents have that experience and could probably run this better. And yes, Bob Iger actually has several children. But as you said, he's in his 70s. He's never had to put on Disney Plus for a kid, right? Maybe his grandkids. And so I think you're right. Need someone who's younger, maybe somebody who's in their 40s, who still has children at home, who has been a parent planning a trip to a Disney park, which I'm going to tell you this, Bob Iger, I used to be on your side. You have made the Disney parks, I feel, exploited every time I'm there. You want me to pay for everything. You want me to pay for this app that gives me the right to basically gamble on fast passes so I can get on a ride without waiting in line, but it's not even a guarantee. And I feel like I'm in Vegas, like just swiping for rides to try to get my daughter to see, like, you know, the adventure of the Little Mermaid or the Haunted Mansion. And instead of like spending time with my kid, seriously, Bob Iger.
This is the most
Parks
heated I have
attendance
ever
is
seen,
down.
Sarah. This is the most heated I have ever seen Sarah Sahakian. It's incredible. And I love this suggestion. And by the way, I think it's actually really smart, especially a reference about home video. That's right on. And that's why I also was saying, let's get a consumer in there, somebody who actually understands the product and uses it. You are right on. I'm with you. By the way, fun fact or not so fun fact, I have never been to Disney.
You have to come with us sometime. So I don't drive. So for family vacations, I like a Disney park because the urban planning is amazing. I do have to say, one thing I give Disney credit for is that they have created a city the size of Manhattan. That is Disney World. It is the size of Manhattan, or maybe even larger. I think it might be the size of the Bay Area. It is the size of a large urban area because back in the day, it was really cheap to buy real estate in Florida. And what happens is that they bus you everywhere, or they have Skyliners or monorail. They have so many different types of public transit. And I mean, yes, you have to pay to stay at their hotels to use it. But it really is a wonderful community where you don't have to drive. And then you end up paying like $800 to buy souvenirs for your child. So, you know, they do exploit you. But I would say a lot of places exploit you as a tourist. But this is one where I do actually enjoy it. So one day you should come with us. Let's wait till Beatrix is old enough to drink so that we can do the cocktails around the world thing at Epcot.
I would love that. Maybe we'll do when she turns 18. How cute would that be?
Yeah. A good 18th
Disney
birthday
and
for
cocktails. Yeah. I will say, here's my hopefully by then Bob will be ousted, you know? I won't go
or
to
dead.
Disney
Like
until
he's so old. I don't want him to die. I'm just saying he's so old. Why does he want to do this with his remaining years?
Right. This is our most ageist episode yet. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, 73 is not like lots of people are very vibrant at 73. I'm just saying if I had this much money and I didn't have to work at 73, I wouldn't.
No, you're right. But I think, listen, his kids are probably out the door. This is his whole life. And he's almost a household name, which is pretty wild for a Disney CEO. So there you go.
Yeah, but you're right. An outsider would be good. One of the most successful Disney CEOs in history, until he was fired by the shareholders in a very dramatic fashion, was Michael Eisner. And they brought him in from Paramount. And he had young kids at home. So he would do things like when they were testing rides at the new parks, he would bring his kids.
Wow, I love that.
And all of the, like Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was head of animation at the time and then left to co-found DreamWorks, he would also take his kids to Disney World every year. So one of the reasons why they call this the Disney Renaissance is because you had a bunch of people who were consuming the product. They were watching the movies, buying the kids the toys, taking the kids to Disney World, and they understood, A, what this meant to people. So they took the responsibility seriously. They realized they had to deliver quality that was worthy of the fans. And they also just were constantly testing the product themselves, right? So there's that. And by the way, just for any listeners who feel like this Disney, they are above Disney, I do get it. Sometimes, like, if you see the whole Disney adult trend, it might seem a little bit alien to you, but we are all Disney adults now because Disney is the largest entertainment, one of the largest entertainment companies on earth. They own Hulu, they own ABC. If you watch The Bear is a Disney property. If you watch Grey's Anatomy, Disney property. We are literally all Disney adults now because they own so much. And so we should all be invested in who their next CEO is and the direction that that person will take the company in.
Yeah, it's a little bit terrifying, to be quite honest. Yeah, I don't love it. I don't love a monopoly, but this is where we're headed. So it's good to pay attention is basically what we're saying.
Exactly. Because this person is going to dictate a lot of what you see, the content you see in the world, and what artists are allowed to make essentially in Hollywood.
Exactly. And also, by the way, the television shows you want to see that don't get developed or don't move forward or suddenly are drastically different from what you were expecting for certain political reasons. But anyway, enough about that. Enough about hot Bob Iger and all of his Succession drama. Channing Tatum and Zoe Kravitz split this week.
I know.
I'm devastated. These two were engaged. They've been together for, I believe, a couple of years. She just had her directorial debut come out, and he was the star of it. She wrote it as well. I didn't love it. I thought it was a little bit trigger warning. It was quite disturbing. Not my favorite movie, but I liked them working together, and the way that she shot this man, you could tell she's very much in love with him. I don't know, I just loved this really hot pairing. Sarah, what do you make of this news? What was your immediate feeling? Where were you? What were you wearing? How did you feel?
I was quite sad. I haven't been this devastated in a while, actually, because it seemed like it was a really beautiful love story. It wasn't the first love for either. They'd both had pretty high profile relationships in the past that didn't work and had been in the tabloids when those relationships failed. So I was happy that they were two adults who found each other. It seemed like a union of equals, both creative equals, but also they seemed to respect each other so much just as human beings in a relationship. And they're very attractive. They were equally attractive.
Very gorgeous. My God. That is a sex tape I'd pay for. Can I say that? That is a sex tape I'd pay for.
So I was just sad because I wanted good things for them. They both seemed happy. And it just shows you never know what's going on behind closed doors. And it doesn't seem like anything super awful happened, but sometimes relationships just don't work. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not so sure because it was so sudden. They were just doing the press tour for Blink Twice, which again is Zoe's new movie. It just came out a few months ago. And on the press tour, they were so lovey-dovey. I mean, they had to do a lot of talk about their relationship because it was the first time that they've been on camera talking about it candidly. And so they seemed really high up. So I'm not, my immediate thought, and I'm sorry to say it, is that somebody cheated. That's what I always think when it's a really sudden split. Obviously, we don't know them. So maybe this is something they'd had planned. Maybe they wanted to wait till the press tour was over so the movie could get what it wanted or like the max attention and good attention, and then they'd call it off. That could also be part of it. Here's a fun little development. So Jenna Dewan Channing's ex, who we also love here because
I love her.
and I love her and I loved their love story as well. But anyway, and they share a daughter. So they only recently settled their divorce, I think maybe a couple of months ago. It's taken quite a bit of time. Part of the reason was because there's been a lot of rumors. We don't know the exact story, but as the possible story goes, Jenna wanted more from the Magic Mike franchise and how much Channing had pulled in, even though for the last film he'd been working on that after their split. And so some people say Channing was hiding what he'd made. She was trying to connive and take some of it, even though she had no right to it. I don't know what the story is. I like them both. I hate that this even happened. But anyway, it did prolong the divorce settlement. And so, jumping off from there, her current fiance, whose name I don't remember, and I'm good with not remembering, as soon as this news about the Channing and Zoe split happened, he jumped on Instagram and on his stories, he posted just this text note that said, ha 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 ha. And it's clearly in reference to these two because here's a bit of a deep cut. But when the Sony leak happened a while back, there was some infamous emails, really funny ones actually, that Channing had sent where he literally just was replying to them in all caps saying, ha 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 ha. It was really funny. But so not only has this man Googled Channing and gone real deep and knew about the specific, like you have to really be a pop culture person to know that he sent those emails saying that, but then to also be taking joy in these two and their split. I don't know. It's fascinating. First of all, it's petty as hell. Why'd you put that out there? Makes you look bad. But also, what's going on in this foursome that he's taking such joy in their split?
I love a petty ex. Like I'm not saying I would want to have to interact or co-parent with a petty ex, but I love that he was so petty that he studied all the Sony hack emails and then decided to reference them. Like I don't like. I'm enjoying it. It's entertaining for me. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Here's the thing. Everyone, from what I have heard, from divorce lawyers saying this and psychologists saying this, even good people are their worst selves during a divorce in most cases. Very few divorces are civilized, especially when there are children involved and there are co-parenting issues, right? Also, I mean, there was a lot of money involved here, and you can look at it both ways. You can look at like he was trying to shortchange her. She was trying to take something she wasn't entitled to. Like this is very complicated. And one thing I will say in Jenna's defense here, because I'm kind of am on her side here, she gave up a lot to be the primary caregiver to their child when his career took off.
Yeah, that is
right.
true.
She really did. And that sacrifice, when you make those sacrifices, and that Channing will benefit forever for the time he was able to focus on his career while she was raising their kid. He will always benefit from that. That raised his status, that let him do a lot of work. In my opinion, it is fair for her to derive some benefit from that. That is my opinion.
I don't disagree. And I think partly, and I'm sure this is part of her claim too, he kickstarted the Magic Mike franchise when they were together. And so I don't know. It's an interesting. Listen, neither of us are lawyers here, but if you're keeping the franchise going even after you've split, but you founded it together, not that she was a producer, she was involved in that way, but she was with him at the time. So if she gets profits based off of the first films, I don't know. It makes sense to me that it would carry on, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's IP, right? So it's hard. I'm not an IP lawyer, and I'm not a family lawyer. But the fact that this case wasn't thrown out, that they allowed her, that they kept going with this, suggests to me that there is some argument you can make for it. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it is IP, right? It was IP driven, and the IP was developed during their marriage. And she, while raising their child, she was there for him while he made these movies and made a ton of money. So I don't know. The ex, like, it's one of those things where he's never really known Tatum in any other way other than as his beloved fiance's ex. So he's only heard the worst things, right? So he probably hates this man's guts, which in some ways is sweet, right? That he loves Jenna so much that he hates this man for her.
Oh, okay. That's a really generous spin. He sounds like a worm to me, but I love that. Listen, I love Channing. I love Jenna. I also enjoy Zoe from time to time. I just want everybody to be happy, and I hope that's what comes out of this. And I hope he goes on, and Zoe goes on to find people that they can kind of make it work with, because it seems like they both do want to be married, and they both want that.
Who do you think initiated the breakup, if you had to guess? I know we don't know.
You know what? And again, this is based on total assumptions, but Zoe, just because she seems so cool and headstrong, and if she had to experience shit the way I envision her, and by the way, is probably not her at all, is at the moment she hears shit going down, she's like, I'm out. But
I think so too. And this is only based on the fact that her first marriage, and I'm not completely sure why her first marriage failed, right? I mean, regardless of tabloid reports or anything, if you're not in a marriage, you can't really know for sure, right? But she got divorced after 18 months.
Yeah.
Which to me suggests that she's the type of person who doesn't like to waste her time. If things go south, she gets out. And I mean, I'm not judging her for that. Like, you don't have to waste your time if that's your approach to marriage and getting out of relationships you don't want to be in.
In fact, I think it's in conclusion, do what works for you. Do what works for you. Life is not as short as it might seem, okay? And there are other people to love out there. And on that note, that is this week's episode. Thank you to our wonderful editor, as always, Evan Wexler. And of course, thank you to all of you listeners. We hope you'll come back. We hope you'll come back every week, because we plan to cover so many more scandals, so many more little dramas, and the only way to do that is if we're gossiping about it together. You can listen to The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Sadaf. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me on Twitter at Sarah Sahagian. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you'd like us to keep growing, we'd love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. Thanks for listening. Hi again, it's Sarah. We have a cute little postscript for you this week. So, do you remember that contest we did where we gave away tickets to see Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour in Toronto? Well, thanks to Rogers, we got to give those tickets away. This is a recording of the call where our lucky listener Eve found out that she had won those tickets. We are so excited for Eve to get to take her best friend Rebecca to see their favorite artist. And for the rest of you listeners, thank you so much for participating in the contest. We hope that all of you get to see Taylor sometime very soon.
Hello, is this Eve?
Yes, it is Eve. Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Eve. This is Sadaf from The Reheat.
And this is Sarah Sahagian from The Reheat.
Hello.
How are you? And how does it feel to know you won 2 tickets to Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour?
Oh my god, okay, it's for like one of my best friends. She's like the biggest fan, and I just called her and she's crying, and I'm so excited. I just saw the voicemail, and I was like, hang on, wait, is this for you?
Oh, I'm gonna cry now. I love that you're taking your best friend. Congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, this is so exciting.
Eve, we are so happy for you. I feel just as excited. I can't believe you're taking your friend. It's just like me and Sarah.
Oh my god. What's her name? What's your best friend's name?
Rebecca. She's like, she's like, you need to call back. This is urgent. So I was like, I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to call them back now.
This was absolutely an emergency situation. We're so glad that you called back.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're going to wear? Are you going to take friendship bracelets? What's happening? What's the plan?
I don't even know. I don't know. I'm still in shock. I have like no concept of like what's going on to even decide.
Well, we are so happy that it's going to a lovely pair of 2 best friends. Thanks to Rogers for these tickets, and congratulations. Oh God, you gave me my daily happy cry. Thank you.